You can't just come in and be like, hey, I got this new setup. I'm going to just roll this out this week. You know, you could get pushback from your band members. You get pushback from your sound team.
Yep.
You get pushback from your pastor. I don't know if there's worship wars on tracks, but I'm sure there are.
Oh, yeah.
Today we're going to be answering the question, why are we using tracks? And what are the benefits, the drawbacks, the cost? And we're going to talk a lot about Loop Community, and this is all in preparation for the release of our course on Loop Community. So Mike's in our band, and actually I'm in Mike's band. I guess I'm in Mike's band because he's the band leader. Yeah, right.
Yep.
It used to feel like Mike was in my band. Now I'm in Mike's band. I'm just glad to be there playing. He's the music. What do you call yourself? The supreme
band leader.
Supreme band man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the band leader, so he can heckle you in your earphones when nobody's listening. That's what he does to me. He makes me feel insecure.
Mm-hmm.
When I hit a wrong note, he looks at me. And then, do you do that on purpose, or do you just?
No. Sometimes.
If you hit a wrong note and I go like this, does it make you feel?
No.
Does it make you feel
Did you
nervous?
hear my wrong note the other night, though?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah.
Our last Sunday.
It was like some kind of accidental that wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, I was in the wrong key in my head.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Oh, it was terrible. It was so loud because it was just piano. So
I know.
It was terrible.
Because I look back, I didn't do it on purpose, but I looked at was it John playing bass? I looked at John. John looked at. We all looked at each other like, oh, I guess okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's the note of the song.
That was a good worship fail moment.
It wasn't as bad as I mean, do you remember a couple like 6 months ago or maybe a year? It was probably a year ago. I played that big guitar solo, and at the very end, I like ended on the. Were you on stage or were you in the audience?
I think I was running this. I think
You're
I was
running sound? Oh, that's
and
bad.
I had you like jacked.
That's bad. Yeah, and I ended like on a totally wrong note, and it was like wah.
Yeah.
And then at the end, because once that happens, I'm pretty much just out of like everything in me just shuts down. I'm like, oh, I stink. So anyway, at the end, it was so bad, I needed validation or something. So I go, did he? Because I was thinking maybe nobody heard it. Because sometimes nobody hear, the guitars are buried, and you're like, but I knew because you were running sound, that's not the case. They were not buried. So I went up to a couple of people, like, did you? They're like, yeah, we heard it. I'm like, did you hear that? Did you? They're like, yeah, we heard it. Like, it wasn't even like, most time people will go like, oh, no, I don't, no, I didn't. You make a mistake and only you notice it. Probably.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was the worst.
I think because you were going off in practice, and then the pastor's dad walked in, and you're like, oh, I can't do all that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I think it messed with your head a little bit.
I think so. I hope he wasn't there too. Maybe he was. Maybe everybody was there. It doesn't matter. It was second service probably.
Yeah.
It was bad. Even John was there. Everybody was there. So anyway, that's our fail. We all fail. That's okay.
Man.
Especially on the piano. It's harder on the piano to me, I think, because you've got to change keys on all those tracks all the time. You got to always be like, okay. So have you ever? I've never been in a service where you started the track in the wrong key.
Yeah, I did a few months ago with Maddie, and about killed her. It was a whole step higher than she's used to.
I think I was there one week when you guys started a song. I didn't notice that you did it, but somebody started the track. Probably was you. And then Leah was singing, but it was like way high. Was that the one you're talking about?
No, we were doing "Oh Come to the Altar," and she does it in E, and so Maddie's alto, so she can't sing too high.
Yeah,
and
right.
I transposed, and like when I let off the button, it went up again, and I didn't realize it, so I just started the song, and so we did it in F, and about killed her.
Really?
Yeah.
But so she did it. Nobody noticed, but she was
noticed.
like,
She kept looking at me. I was like, and shaking her head, and I was like, "What is she doing? Can she not hear herself?" And then I looked and I realized we're like, first verse.
Because she puts her songs like right at the key, like the highest key that she can. Like she knows where her range is. Like E is that's the bridge is like the top for her. So she picks her songs quite specifically, like I would. So yeah, half step probably would mess her up.
Yeah.
And some people it might be like
a whole step E to F.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was up there. So, but I think like in practice, sometimes you start the track and it's like a totally different, because you're messing with keys and you go from one to the other. It sounds like a train wreck. You haven't done that in service.
No, not too bad.
Not too bad. Okay, no train wrecks.
No.
So tracks are new to me. I've been playing. I'll start out with this because I started playing guitar back in the '90s, and you're about my age, right? You're
yeah,
younger
we're
than me.
close.
Anyway, so you remember back when there were no tracks.
Yeah, never heard of tracks.
You remember
10 years ago?
back when musicians could play, they didn't need somebody telling them what to do. When I grew up in rock band, you know, in the rock band I was in, we didn't have anything like that. We just came in, the drummer played. We didn't have clicks until, and I'm sure back in the '90s the bands were using clicks, but we weren't. We were like in junior high, you know. So we go to practice, we play. We go to gigs, we play the songs super fast. We didn't mean to. My college band, actually, we would speed up. That guy was a speed demon. He plays with clicks now, but in all through college, we recorded even our recordings. And maybe someday I'll share those. There's no click, so you can hear. And we were like kind of a punk ska rock band. He was into more of that ska, so it would get real fast, and I was more into rock, so I'm playing like rock. And then all of a sudden, it's turning into ska. I don't know. So we didn't use any of that. So it's weird to me that when you get into tracks and stuff now, that young musicians they don't have any sense of like maybe what that feels like to just jam. You notice that with your.
Yeah, I mean, even if we do a song where we don't have a track for it, everybody wants a click still.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just play it. No, we want to click. Like now that when you get used to it, yeah, it's almost impossible to play without a click.
But I've met drummers who, in fact, I've known some semi-pro drummers, and I delete the pro from them after they say this, but they've played a lot of places, and they're actually not like just newbie drummers that won't play with the click. They just won't do it. Have you ever met anybody like that?
That won't. No. Well, so like I said, growing up, it was like our backgrounds are different church wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just like our growing up was the pastor's wife. She played the organ and she'd start the song, and then everybody just follow her.
With the drums? Not with the drums?
Just like she'd start song, and then like all the rest of the, like we just had bass, piano, organ, and drums. But like our drummer and bass player were really good. Like they were married couple.
Okay. Yeah, you told me about
And so
that.
yeah, they were really good. But yeah, you hear it like, cause once everybody starts worshiping and getting excited, the song gets really fast, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
That's one thing I do like about click because it's taught me more about the pocket. I mean, I think I was a pretty good rhythmic. I play the drums too, so I have a pocket of my own, and I don't typically tend to speed up. But the click will definitely. I mean, I definitely have started worship songs like so fast and realized midway through like this is terrible. Like, but you can't stop.
No.
You're already in. It's already going.
Yeah.
And you lose the whole feel is gone. Yeah, everything's gone because you're just trying to get through it. Then like I got to get through this song, and maybe some churches would like that. They'd be like, yeah, we're doing it. We're getting into it. I don't know, but I have a lot of this stuff. These drummers that think that they're better than the click, and maybe there are drummers out there that are good, and I believe there are drummers that can hold time pretty good. In fact, I think this is true that Satriani back in the day, his little trio recorded a whole record without a click, and they wanted to be like prove that they could be as perfect without the click, and I think they could probably do it. Guys at that level, but it still was maybe I'll look into it, or maybe you guys out there listening, check it out, see if you can find out if Joe Satriani did record a whole album with no click back when albums were recorded to clicks. I don't know the history. I don't know when they came in and said, let's have a click track. I mean, surely not the Beatles. They were just, I mean, you can tell how music evolved all the way to now to where it sounds almost fake. This is like,
yeah, it's
click, pitch correction, everything's perfect. And now we can't even, you listen to music back in the 70s, 80s, and it's very raw, even the mixes and the drum sounds. So everything has changed, and the church has changed too. So, let's. To me, it's. I'm on the fence both ways. I like the click. I like the tracks. But then I if I was playing in my own band and just had I don't know that I would use them. But we're going to use clicks and tracks in my band that I'm working with now. So, I'm in like a love-hate relationship with the clicks. But let's go through and tracks. Let's go through why we use tracks and what are the benefits. Because I don't think that. I think some people listening, even as I'm on forums, I can tell some people like this, some people don't. But everybody's doing it. So why? what's the benefit that you found using tracks starting back from the day? Because you've been doing it a while.
Yeah, I mean, when I started leading worship at my church in Louisiana, we just had a drummer, bass, and piano. That was it. And then I switched over to guitar and played guitar for a while. But I just seen like churches were doing it, so I was like, hey, just looking into it, just trying to make it sound better, really make everything more full. And so we started. Our first thing was a fail. We just without tracks just tried to use a click, and we couldn't do it. Like, it was horrible. We tried to practice, and the drummer couldn't figure it out, just to stay on the click. But once we incorporated actual track, it was like night and day. We almost instantly got it. Stayed on the click the whole time, because we were playing with other musicians that weren't there, and so that, like, for that drummer, really helped that drummer. He could hear, the chorus coming up, all that. So yeah, it just, like, a lot of people are against it because they're like, you can't be spontaneous, which you can. You just got to figure out how to do it, learn how to do it. There's so much to tracks, the benefits. Like, if your bass player calls off that week, just plug in the bass, and if your guy can mix it right, you won't know bass is there. Like, we've done it where we didn't have a drummer, we just shut the lights off in the cage, and it sounded like the drummer was there the whole time. But you just got to mix it right.
Yeah, I've noticed that in our church, the drums are dark. Mm-hmm. So, I'll play drums and people won't even know I'm back there. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could. And I've noticed I've been there weeks where you didn't have a bass player, and I think you just turned on the bass. Mm-hmm. This was recently. Yep. And it's just as good. So if you're a small church and you don't have musicians, you can... That's where I think it's going, and Jeffrey's church is doing that. They stripped everything down to the worship leader and tracks recently, so they're just going to let him lead worship with tracks because they don't have a full band yet, and they're going to slowly start adding singers, and they're going to add a drummer, they're going to add a bass player, so they can build this really good quality sound from the ground up, and that's a different approach. I've never tried that before, but I think it would definitely work. You could
get the congregation used to tracks,
yeah,
because at first people are weird about it, but then eventually it, fades away. It's no big deal.
Something happened to me back when I was younger in music, Christian music, and it changed my whole opinion of tracks, because I would think they're cheesy. I would probably still think they're cheesy if I didn't go. I saw Point of Grace. You remember them? And then do you remember a band called like Aaron Jeffrey? Mm-hmm. They were way back then, but they were kind of...
There was a dad and son group, yeah. They could sing.
They were killing it.
Yeah.
They were, amazing vocalists. Mm-hmm. So I saw Aaron Jeffrey and Point of Grace in concert, some big church. It was a church concert, but they came, and I didn't know anything about Christian music. I was like into Metallica and stuff, so I go to this. And
Point of Grace to Metallica.
Yeah. I was at Metallica. And then let's go to Point of Grace, Mom. Or no, I'm sure I didn't go with. I don't know if I went. I was probably I was a teenager. So I go there, and Point of Grace comes out, plays to tracks, and Aaron Jeffrey came out, played all the tracks, and they were. I was floored. I was like, they were amazing. I didn't care.
Just them two, like no band.
Yeah, just those two, and everything else was on track, and it sounded amazing because they were a vocal group kind of. Mm-hmm. But the gig that they were at, Point of Grace and them only used tracks, and so I was like, whoa, that was amazing. It was the singing, it was Aaron Jeffrey. I don't think I cared that much about Point of Grace. I mean, they were good too, but Aaron Jeffrey were two dudes, and they were like good singers. I wish they were. I'm sure they're still around. Actually, I think my wife knew that the son for a minute. He was here in Nashville. Anyway, so from that point on, I was never against tracks. I was like, dude, that blew me away. Mm-hmm. So if you were just a single worship leader up on stage playing, and you had a whole band behind you, I mean, it might seem kind of weird, but then if it's good quality, you got a good voice, I mean, your church is gonna. I mean, they might go like, wow, that was. I mean, I don't see how it could go wrong.
Yeah.
Even if you were a single dude, but if you're like talking about missing a drummer, if you're talking about missing a guitar player. The other problem that the industry created for church musicians is all these productions are amazing. Mm-hmm. So there's like 6 guitar tracks. There's like 4 keyboard tracks, pads. Yeah, I mean, and them because you see all the tracks. I just hear them on the radio. Like, okay, how am I gonna? When I'm practicing to play, I'm listening to the track, going, okay, there's this little ding 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 ding. I'm like, well, that's a keyboard. It sounds like a guitar, but you just kind of have to pick and choose. But
yeah,
when I'm playing with you guys, I don't stress as much anymore because the parts are in there.
Mm-hmm. It just depends. Like for us, because some people are like, oh, if you don't have strings, you shouldn't put strings in there. If you don't have acoustic player, then there's no way you should hear an acoustic guitar in the track. You just got to mix it right. Like we have strings, like we use every track that's on there. Even if I have 2 guitar players and there's 6 guitar tracks, we use all the guitar tracks. You just got to layer them right. That's all it is. It's all about the sound because it just makes the sound full. So like with strings, if there's like a crazy string accompaniment to the track, you just mix it right. It ain't out front in front of everything. It's maybe you might even bury it, but it just makes everything more full. Because like what you're saying about Aaron Jeffrey, the first time I realized tracks was I went to a Toby Mac concert, and his guitar player is awesome. And like in the middle of one of the songs, he stops playing because his pedal board shorted out. And he's like down there trying to fix it, but you hear the guitars just blaring. You don't hear him doing all his fancy stuff, but you hear the guitars. Like that was one of the best concerts I've been to, one of Toby Mac's concerts, like the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what in the world? How am I hearing guitars? And he's down there not even playing. You know, they had to bring a whole pedal board out for him and everything. But then once you started playing, you hear how it was all mixed. And I was like, yeah, that's how we want to do it, you know, with tracks.
Yeah, I think when you have a moment like that, it's like take out the tracks. It's the same thing when you listen to our band, and we have a pretty polished band now. But if you just took out the tracks tomorrow, like if we were just playing and then you took out the tracks, you'd notice a difference. I mean, we'd still be playing, and we can still play our parts. And I'd say 70% of what you hear is really the band. But there's all this like upper candy, ear candy, and then there's this lower support kind of wrapping the band up and making it sound polished. And you don't even have to try that hard. I mean, as a musician, I've been appreciating them more because of all the guitar parts. I'll learn one, and I know I'm not going to learn all 4 of them. And I know even if there's a hard one, I'm like, I don't really get that one. I just let it go, and I know, and I'll hear it during practice. Oh, there it is. It's in there. So I mean, if you're just starting out and you're not a great guitar player and you don't got all the, and you're like, oh man, intimidated by even the intros of some of these songs, you know, they're going to be there.
That's it. Works both ways for like, just say like Lion and the Lamb, like the intro.
Yeah.
So like if our guitar player could play it, like I played with a guy that couldn't play that part, which was hilarious. So like during that part, he would actually pretend to play it. Like he'd move his fingers, but you'd hear the track, you know?
Yeah.
But like if we're playing with you, that lead part, we just turned it down. It would still be in the mix, but it would be like maybe at 30% instead of 100%. And then you play on top of it. So it actually makes you sound bigger than you really are.
Yeah.
That's what tracks do with everything. So like for when we play with our band, like I always have the piano track low if I'm playing, but all the other key parts, because there's like you said, 3 or 4 different, there's like octaves going on, all kinds of different stuff, and that stays up while the piano part stays down, and it's just layered over me. So the track it's just an enhancement. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I brought you in here because you've got such a nuanced experience with this. You're a musician, and it's not just like, oh, turn the tracks on in the bands. It isn't like that, and I think that's what gives people at least that's the vibe I get when people are against them. It's like, oh, we want to be a band. It's like, well, yeah, but bands use all kinds of tools. You know, we use reverb, we use pedal boards, like we use pads. I mean, we use all kinds of stuff. So tracks are just
if like, you know how a guitar player, how many pedals you got on your board? 15 pedals,
probably at least.
You know, to make your sound better, and that's all tracks does is make the band sound better. It makes you tighter, makes you a better band. It can be a negative too, to where like your band doesn't practice as much because they know the tracks can cover them. So you got to be very wary of that. But,
which I just admitted to, kind of.
In a way. But
yeah.
If you see a guy that comes every week and he's not practicing because he knows the track will cover him up, then you have to have a conversation with him.
Might as well just turn his guitar off and he just stands there.
Yeah.
You know, does
what you can with tracks. But how we mix our tracks in church, they're just in there. Like you said, you turn them down, you can tell the difference in like the fullness of everything.
Right.
But yeah, our tracks don't. We play on top of the tracks. The tracks don't play on top of us.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's totally true. So you're able to produce a more polished production with a small team. That's one of the benefits.
Yeah.
And even a single worship leader could lead with tracks if he had no band, which is what Jeffrey's band is doing in New York. And it's a built-in click. It makes your band tight. That's the thing about. I've struggled, and we'll just talk a little bit about this, with some drummers that can't play to a click. And then it was interesting you said that, like he couldn't play to the click, but he could play to the track. Mm-hmm. I had a drummer who couldn't play to a click, and he was open to playing to a click. And I think we only, to be fair, I don't think we used tracks in that church. We just used click. And it was a little bit, this was way back in like 2005. So it was pretty far back. I'm not even sure they had a lot of track, you know, like what they have now, like Loop Community. I'm not sure they were even around in 2000, way back. but I used, so our drummer couldn't play to a click, so I got this bass drum thump click in his head for about a month. So I used like a beat buddy pedal or something. It just threw down this thump. It was like a bass drum. That was our click. And so after about 2 months, this guy, he was all over the place. He's a good drummer, but he was like, all his fills were really fast, and he could play really fast, but he'd always be speeding up, especially within his fills. About a month or two in, because he was like just trying and struggling with his click, he started getting on the click and became probably the best drummer I played with in all of one of at least of the top 3 best drummers I've ever played with, because he already had all the chops, but he didn't have a pocket. Once he got the pocket with that click, then he could stay to that click. He would never get off. Whatever fill he was doing, it was wild stuff. He would just be on that click. And we played together for a couple of years after that, and it was just the best. It was like, I knew he was never going to fail. But it does, I said all that to say it will make your drummer killer better.
Yeah,
it will make your
everybody
band better,
it made
tighter.
me better.
Yeah, it'll make guitar players better. But it will take some time to get to the click. But I liked your suggestion, like play the tracks. If you start out now with just tracks instead of just a click, is intimidating. And I started playing to a click when I was in 9th grade. Early, we were like recording and we played with clicks. I don't know why my college band didn't, but very early I could play to a click, and it never left me. So it's just in my brain. But once, I think even older musicians, once they click with the click, they're like, they can do it.
Yeah. That's when I was in my first band, I was the rhythm player, and like we had an amazing lead player, but his rhythm wasn't great. And so I started every song because I had pretty decent rhythm, and I thought I was like really good until I started trying just a click, and I couldn't play with just a click. Like it was horrible. Just simple chords like a 1, 4 or 5. I couldn't do that in a click. And then until we put the track on, and then like it just made more sense. And I would suggest like even like if you're just a single worship leader, like you buy a track and there's 20 tracks on there or 20 instruments. You don't have to put all 20 in there. Just add a guitar, add strings, or just even a pad, and then play with that with the cues, and it'll make and start out that way before you add all, like you do full band drums, everything. Might freak people out, especially in the smaller churches.
Yeah, so you could use the pads and
do pads and strings and. Add electric, the lead electric in there with you in a rhythm, and just keep it super simple for a while, and then just keep adding till you figure it out.
Yeah. So let's move into drawbacks of clicks, and we've kind of talked about some of them, and mostly we talked more about what people feel about them. But what are some of the drawbacks that I wrote down here are not true, and some of them are true. So some people say they're rigid. Or there's 2 preset orders. They can't flow in worship. So tell me about that. Why is that not true? Or why would it be true? And why would it not be true?
Yeah. Like a lot of people might want to go back into the chorus or, do more spontaneous. And at first with tracks, yeah, it was a lot harder. But now with the new updates, it's incredible what you can do with tracks. Like before you'd have to if you want to do the chorus again, you just click on the chorus. Like you have to be prepared. Like it's not like super super easy to do, but you just if they look at you, let's do the chorus again. You just have to click on it on the actual track, which we'll show you on our when we do the screen shares and all that. We'll show you how to do that. But the stuff now, I mean, you can flow into every song, go back into new songs just by a click of a button. So
you're running this, and we're going to talk more about that. But if you're on the iPad. What I was talking to a worship leader the other day was like, it seems easier because you can just touch the screen. With the computer. You just have to use your mouse, touch the chorus, and you're going back to it. And they have MIDI pedals and all kinds of stuff.
They got pedals, and now they got this new update. They got pads in there, so like you could just click the button next, or you don't have to click it. You can preset it because, we want spontaneous worship, but we also, which it can flow, but then there's other times you kind of like. Hey, if it goes this way, we'll have this song prepared for it, which is always, it's just, you're not forcing worship on people, you're just being prepared. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, and so you could have it set to where it automatically goes into the same key you're going to with just a pad, and then you can do your spontaneous on top of that pad, and so it's just seamless. So
that it's rigid or it's preset, that would probably be, I would say, some of the biggest friction that I've heard, or that I would think if I was going to do pads or tracks. And I think what you're saying is that once you get to it, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, because like the church I came from, I was worship leader with my sister, and me and her could flow. I mean, we could do 10 songs, like just bam,
just
bam,
go,
bam,
go,
bam,
go.
just go. And so we didn't have tracks for all of that, which we could, but it's if the Spirit's moving, you just flow. And if you got a decent, good enough piano player or and worship leader, you don't even have to worry about the tracks. You can just flow. You don't need a track to flow.
Right.
You know?
So you could have a song on a track, and then you could throw down a pad in that same key, and you could sing 3 songs, and then you could know we're going to end the set with this song, and you could start the track whenever you want to.
Yep.
And that seems like it would be so easier, so much easier. So I'm glad that, yeah. I like the fact that they have the pads now, and that you have crossfades. We're going to show you how to do all that in the course. So it says here somewhat more complicated setup. So that could be a drawback.
Yeah, you have to look, like figure it out how to do it. Because like I was just a guitar player and piano player.
Right.
And then I was like, hey, can you set up our sound? And like YouTube, I just YouTubed everything. I mean, hours of YouTube, and just you figure it out. But like, we'll show you how to do that. It's really pretty simple. It's just a couple chords you need.
In fact,
to start out really simple.
Yeah, we have a little bit more complicated setup, and we're going to talk about this track rig and everything else. There's 8 inputs or whatever. We use the Scarlett. It's a little more complicated, but it's basic recording equipment. But there is a setup where you can just take your iPad, plug in the headphone jack right into the mixer, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's what we did. We did iPad right into the. It was a aux cable into, and then at the other end it was 2 XLRs, and plugged that into our Snake, and it was just 2 inputs. So it was just simple. You just hit play.
So even in the most simple setup, though, a drawback is you do need an in-ear setup.
Yeah, you got to have in-ears
to stay with the tracks. You cannot just use floor wedges. Why? Why not?
Because you hear the click. If you do that, you hear click, click, click.
Because
through everything,
everybody has to hear the click, or at least most of the band is going to have to hear that click and the guide. Mm-hmm. So what we would do is put the click and the guide in like the left channel into the mixer, and then out of your iPad, and then all the tracks. If it's the most simple setup, all the tracks would go into the other channel, and then that little click and guide, that little click 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 verse chorus voice is going to only be heard by the band, and that's why you can't just use floor wedges. I've heard. I forget where I was, but I think it was at a showcase, and John kept looking at me like, "Can you hear the click?" I'm like, "Yeah." They were running the click through the floor monitor. I think it was just they were running bands through there, and some of them had their clicks bleeding over into the floor wedges. So you couldn't do that. I mean, I guess you could. It'd be pretty tacky, but you're going to have some sort of in-ear setup, which can be done for pretty cheap. We'll talk about that in our other podcast. But I wouldn't feel too bad about that, or feel like that's not a drawback. Under a few $100, you can have a simple setup. Mike's got a good one. He's going to show it to us. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that now. The cost, like the software, and we're going to be focused on the Loop community during this whole section. There are other things like multi-tracks, but like let's just break down, Mike. When you started back, and you were in a small church, you started using tracks. What was you got by pretty cheap? I know that.
Yeah. Well, when we started, there was only Loop community multi-tracks out there. And Loop community is much more cost-friendly, I would say, than multitracks. Multitracks is just expensive, which multitracks might be a little better product. Right. But I think now they're fighting for competition. They're so pretty even now. But Loop community is just so much cheaper. The app's free, and then there's so many different kinds of, like, say, This Is Our God from Phil Wickham. There's like, you can buy the master track, which it's $35, I think, for the master track, which is his actual track. So you're playing with Phil Wickham and his band, which is awesome. But then you can buy Loop Community's track, because they have their own studio musicians that will record the same track their way. It's pretty identical. There might be a couple different things. The drums might sound different, or they might have a pad or a different guitar part in there, but it's the exact same.
But they're mimicking the record, on purpose.
Yep. And those are a little cheaper. So I think those are $25, maybe $30. For the full track. That's full stems. So that's like you get the full stem on your computer, where you could take it and put it in anything, any Logic. You can put it Ableton in anything. But then they have versions where you just get like in-app only, where you can only use it on the app. And those are cheaper. But then what's so great about Loop Community is, if Loop Community has producers from all over the world that will make that track. And so you can just listen to them all. And if you like this guy's track, it's like $10.
Okay.
to buy, and it's
That's
a full
great.
track. But so like some people will only put like a drum or like a pad and keys in there and a guitar part. So but then others is like full band. So you just got to listen through them. But it's just so much more cost effective.
So you're talking about, that clears it up, because you're talking about $10 probably at the most, or at the least.
At the least, some
for
of them are
some
$5.
basics, $5 or $10.
Yeah.
You know, if your church is small and they're strapped on cash, or $35 if you've got, if you're going to do this Phil Wickham song for the whole year and you're going to pay $35 one time, you have it forever, basically.
Yep, forever.
And you can,
Yeah, even that Phil Wickham track though, like I said, you can buy where you get all the stems, which is every part is separated for you. And
Okay.
they send it to you in like a zip file. So like I said, you could take that and record your own version of it with his band.
Yeah. Didn't you tell me before, like on that Phil Wickham, you can buy all the stems, or you can buy just one that has the stems mixed?
Yeah,
Or-
you can do like all the stems or like just stems mixed, or you can even go in there now to just pick out what you want. Like, hey, I only want the guitar, drums, bass, and keyboard part. Where you can click on those 4, and then that's all the track you'll have, and it's like
And that changes
it's like $10.
the price?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. We have a couple. They're called split tracks. We use a couple of those.
Okay. Yeah, and then also, so you can buy them right on Loop Community. You can also buy them on, the cool thing I like about Loop Community, and it's probably both ways, but Multitracks, you can buy tracks from Multitracks,
You can buy
upload
the
them
stems, yep.
into Loop Community, and for a small like storage fee, you said you can.
Yeah, I think I was looking at it last night. I think it's for $5 a month. They give you, is it 50 gigs, maybe 10? I have to look at it again. 50 gigs or
$5 a month,
25
yeah.
gigs, and you can upload as much songs till you reach that limit. And so they have monthly plans now, which when we first started, they didn't have any of that. But it's this. We'll talk about that in our live thing. But
Also, based on cost, you could actually make your own tracks, right?
Yeah.
You could record your own bass and make your own clicking guide and upload it into your Loop Community. That's if you're techie and
For
you want to
free.
save money.
yeah,
Or if your pastor's budget's like, hey, you only have $500 this year for tracks and you've already reached it, and you're savvy, like you're like, hey, I'm going to make a couple, or I'm going to add whatever. Mm-hmm. That seems like a lot of work, but some guys are producers, they want to do their own.
We've done a couple. With our band.
Yeah.
I've made a couple, and we play with it on Sundays. Only downside is like, you need at least do the $5 a month thing, so you can have the storage. Because if you don't, you have to you can only, like, they give you like 250 megabytes,
yeah.
And so it's like 2 songs.
Okay.
And then, so it's not a big deal if you have all the stems on your computer. You can just delete them out of your account on Loop Community and just keep re-uploading every week.
Man, you know how to save money, don't you?
So, you
That's
got
money
to.
saving tip from Mike right there. So $5 a month would be like 50 gigs. That's all you would need.
I have to look at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a decent amount.
$5 or $10 a month. That's totally
For their
doable.
cloud. It's
I hope
the
you
private
guys have
cloud.
$5 a month to pay for the church. I hope you guys out there, you're going to have at least $5 a month.
Or
to buy all
like
this gear.
say like the church that, like I said with that I was doing, we didn't have all that money, so I would just buy a track every week on my own personal account.
Yeah. Just stacked them up.
Just that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that a lot in churches, because sometimes they just like, we don't have any budget, and you're like, well, I need this, I'm buying it.
Yeah.
And I know everybody listening does that too.
And $5 a month ain't gonna
Right.
kill nobody.
Right. Stop at Starbucks one time. Which, by the way, if you go to Starbucks, which I don't tend to go there anymore, it's like, what's up with that?
insane.
It's like $9 for a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah. Not even a large.
It's it's like what's up with that? So we talked about that. People can upload their own arrangements. You can become a producer for Loop Community. It
Yeah.
sounds like
and
it's
you can
getting
make your
harder.
own money. Yeah.
And make your own money. There you go.
Yeah. Like if you like recording your own stuff, you can apply to be a producer, and you ain't gonna get rich off of it, but
Yeah.
you get like every time someone downloads the song that you made, you get $5-10 for it.
That'd be good. Yeah,
So,
I like
yeah.
that. I like that idea. Loop Community, it's app based, so you're going to use it on your iPad or your computer. Can you use it on a PC?
No, that's the only downside to Loop Community is it's all Apple. It's got to
Oh,
be Apple
wow.
products. Yeah,
Oh, I love
that's
them.
the only. Yeah, I know. Because Apple is made for music production.
So is multi-track? Can you use it on a PC?
I'm not sure. We'd have
We
to
don't
look
know
that up.
that. Yeah, we're not
'Cause
sure.
I weighed the cost between the two. I just strictly did Loop Community, and then once in a while, because Multitracks has the rights to more songs than Loop Community does, but
Sure.
Multitracks does. Christian, they do you can get so much more on Multitracks, and because Loop Community is just Christian based.
Yeah, it sounds like they have even like secular tunes on
secular
there
stuff,
now.
yeah, that you
So
can buy.
Multitracks is probably really legit, and it sounds like maybe you felt like in the very beginning, we don't know this for sure now, but in the very beginning that it was more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit harder learning curve. It looked a little bit more difficult. Maybe it can be on PC or not. I don't have any PCs. My son has a gaming PC. Does your son have a gaming
Yeah.
PC? See, we got to get them back over here.
I know, get back on Apple.
And one thing about the iPad, using it on the iPad seemed to be more user friendly. Is that true if you're live?
Yeah,
Because it's the same.
It's the same. It's there might be a couple like different, just a touch different things, like from the iPad to the actual Mac version.
Yeah.
But yeah, iPad's just easier. It's easier to carry around.
I would always tend to go towards Mac because I
Yeah.
want all the controls. I don't want to be, but from the people I've talked to this week, they're like, oh, the iPad, because you can just touch the chorus.
Yep.
If you're playing, you wouldn't want to have a computer up there. So
Yeah, especially if you're the one running tracks, and because that's how we were talking about the other day. Like because I do like to play multiple things, but like if I'm at the piano running tracks, I use my Mac. But if I'm leading worship, then I'll have the iPad next to me,
Right.
out in front, just on the stand next to me, or on my mic stand,
right.
and run it all through there, so it's right in front of you. It's much easier if you're leading worship to use the iPad than the actual Mac.
Yeah, I discounted the iPad altogether before I talked to you guys because I was like, I'm just like, I want the app. But I do think that you shouldn't do that. You should. Everybody I've talked to said like, oh, the iPad's just as easy. So I wouldn't discount it. I personally discounted it because every time I use my iPad for something, it's like it shuts off or it runs out of battery or, my phone calls come in on it. And so I typically try to shy away from anything on stage with it. But you'd have to turn off all the notifications.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
We've had that like right during the pastor's prayer. It's like ding dong, ding dong, ding.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I get my updates for the week. Like your screen, you use this much, and
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding. Yeah, I get that. Done that a few times.
Yeah, if I was going to run an iPad for Loop Community at a church, I would probably just have that's the iPad, and it's going to stay there because my son's YouTube notifications would be popping up during worship service or whatever. That's what would happen to me. So let's go back over just how to start implementing a simple roadmap. Now we're going to do a full course on Loop Community. The course is going to include everything from how to set up the sound system, how to set up your in-ears. We're going to do that. It's already live. If you're hearing this podcast, the course is there. You can go to worshiptheking.com and you can just find that course there with Michael and I. So you're gonna have everything. If you're advanced, you probably, it might be too easy, but if you're just starting out on tracks and you want to implement this into your church, that's what it's going to be about. We're going to make it all right. Especially, I'm going to give you guys some good stuff about my in-ears. I've been messing with in-ears, and we'll touch on this in this right now. I don't like in-ears that much, and if you're a singer, you don't like in-ears, and everybody's always yanking out their ear trying to sing. And so in the chorus, I'm gonna solve a lot of that problem because I've been working with these ambient type. I just use a room mic in general, but I've been testing where to put the room mic, where to place the room mic, how's it affecting me as a vocalist, and then I bought these crazy expensive ambient in-ear monitors, which I don't know if I'm going to keep them because they sound similar to if I just have a room mic. So I don't know. They're expensive. I'm going to show though inside this new course, I'm going to show a very simple like $50 fix for a room mic, or all the way to like crazy expensive ambient headphones, because the biggest problem I've had with in-ears and using tracks, you have to have them, is you can't connect. It's hard to connect with the congregation. You shove those things in your ears, and if you have good in-ears and you're up front, then you're in your own world. And so I'm going to address that in the course a lot. We might even talk about that in the next podcast on this. But you're going to have to set up a basic in-ear system. You're going to have to prep the band. This is how to start implementing, and you're going to have to try to use special songs. So let's talk about that. We're going to set up our in-ears, and we're going to set up a system for the band. That would be your first thing, because you can't even roll out a track unless you've got some sort of in-ear monitoring thing. And then the next thing would be you're going to prep the band. You're going to teach them to play and practice with clicks. So if you cannot roll out tracks if your drummer can't play to a click.
Yeah, you can't. Like I was telling, when we tried to play just click, didn't work. Played the track, and I was blown away instantly. Like drummer got it everybody got it. Like we're not perfect. We're gonna be sloppy, but they got it. So that next Sunday we didn't play all tracks. We just did that one song tracks just to try to implement, and then we just each week maybe added another track, or for a while maybe just one song with tracks for that week, and then we did our rest of the set without it.
Yeah, which is what I wrote. Try to
Yeah.
use a special song or a few songs, and maybe just an opening song.
Yep.
Because
So the band is comfortable.
if I was in a new band and they threw this at me and I had 5 songs to a track, my brain would explode.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't explode your band members' brains. You can't be, that's irresponsible to do.
Yeah, which we've had a couple people join the band that just couldn't get it. Like they're just like they quit because they were so overwhelmed with I can't play to it, and they didn't want to try because they were so used to their way of playing. But we were moving forward, as a band and as a church. So
Yeah, implementing is it's definitely a touchy subject. I mean, we implementing them here at Spring Hill wasn't. I mean, everybody was on board.
yeah, not everybody.
Not
We
everybody.
got some pushback.
Yeah, we did. We had pushback in leadership, pushback in different things, and we kind of just and actually there was quite a bit of pushback in the very beginning of like, what's this going to do? Like they didn't know like the leadership team was like, well, how's it going to affect this, and how's it going to how are we going to flow with this? And so it took even like I remember that early time we just like, let's do one song. So you might have to prove it a little bit, and then I would say now we don't have any friction.
The ones that didn't want it are
They're all like, turn it on.
Turn it on. Let's do it.
Yeah, so I think it has to be done well, especially if you have, in our church, we have a very active leadership team. They're involved in the worship planning a lot. And so you can't just come in and be like, hey, I got this new setup. I'm going to just roll this out this week. You know, just be careful because as a worship leader, you're going to get pushback from, you could get pushback from your band members. You get pushback from your sound team.
Yep.
You get pushback from your pastor. And even the deacon team, they could just think, I don't know if there's worship wars on tracks, but I'm sure there are.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say we'd had that. And now what's wild is they see the benefits of it, of how it's made us just better. And it's not about being better. We're all about excellence. We're here at Spring Hill.
Yeah.
It ain't about being the best band out there. We're just going to be us. We're not trying to be Elevation. We're not trying to be we play with Elevation almost every week, one of their songs, with their band or playing with us. But yeah, we're just us, we're just trying to spread the gospel. That's all we're trying to do and do it the best that we can. Not being perfect, but just being excellent in everything we do. And so they've seen the benefits, and our church has seen the benefits. Like when I first started going there, maybe 1 or 2 people raised their hands. And now, our worship has exploded. And it's not because of tracks, but tracks have enhanced that, have helped.
Yeah, you know what I think on that note too. I mean, we've had worship leader turnover in our church, but since then, and it's hard to tell because the tracks are consistent. So if you have
consistent.
Yeah,
yep.
It really when I would come back because I've been in and out for the last 6 months. I'll be like, man, the band sounds really good. They're still and when you had turnover in staff and then come back, I'm like, man, it sounds good. It's very consistent.
Yeah.
I think that without tracks, that would be I would say extremely hard to pull off.
Yeah.
I mean, even though most of the band is still there, it's very hard. That was one of the biggest frustrations I had in early 2000s running a medium large church band was every week. And if I would have had tracks, this would have been different. But every week I would have a different drummer, and I worked really hard. And a lot of the stuff I teach in the Propel mentorship is like how to build separate bands, how to train everybody to be consistent. But still, if you have a really good bass player and a really good key player one week, and then the next week you have a kind of good bass player and the drummer's a little bit less. I'm the same guy every week. I'm going there with the same expectation, like this is going to be at a certain level, and my expectations were just bouncing all over the place every week.
Oh yeah.
Depending on who is there.
That's the same where we have now because we have a different bass player every week. Like the only thing that's consistent here is like I play keys just about every week, and then our 2 worship leaders are there, and so we have and our drummer. Like we're blessed with 2 really good drummers here, so drummer makes all the difference in the world.
Rotation.
It makes all the difference. And so but we're playing with a different bass player every week, different guitar player every week. So but by implementing the tracks and then all of us playing together so much, it's.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely
you
made us
definitely feel it like
consistent.
when you have like your best drummer, and then when you have like a new drummer, but they're still going to play to the track, and the track is still going to be there.
Yeah.
I think I would have been less frustrated in the 2000s with my worship leading position if I would have had tracks, because I would have been like, this is what we're doing, and it's happening every week. And if the guitar player, I had some great musicians, and some of them, if they weren't there, I just turn up their part. It wouldn't have changed my, But when you're not using tracks and your band is not totally up to what level you're trying to get to every week, I felt that as a leader. I heard it. It was like some weeks were great, some weeks were some weeks were great, some weeks were and it was, to me, it was emotionally tormenting.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mike and I are kind of the same person. We would be tormented, like, just that happened. And tracks, I think, as much as I would love it if every band member would show up every day. Your A band member would show up every single week and be on point every single week. That would be great, but that's not the real world.
No, it's not. We all have jobs. We're like, we call Thursday night rehearsal, not practice. It's rehearsal. You should know your parts by Thursday, because we practice every Thursday for Sunday. And, but like and that's the beauty of tracks too. Like, I used to be so against, like, people like, oh man, our sets are planned out like 3 months ahead. And I was like, well, how does the Spirit lead you? Because I was always like, after Sunday, like, pray all week for the songs, and then I wouldn't have the songs ready till Saturday night. So it totally screwed up the band, because I'm like, I think I have to be like super spiritual. I got to pray all week for these songs. But like, what's wild is what I've seen God do. Like, here at Spring Hill, we have our worship, our leadership. We have a meeting and we plan out a month or 2-3 months in advance. And it just seeing, like, we planned these songs 3 months ago, but they fit perfect with the message, like with what the Spirit wants to say that week. So it's like, I see now that God can still 3 months before can still help us plan 3 months out.
God can know what's going to happen in 3 months.
I know. It's wild. But so that's a beauty with tracks too, is like with Loop Community, there's so much that we could show you guys. Is like, we have our stuff planned out for 3 months. And so, like, if you're a band member and you're not the best band member, well, you can see, hey, I'm on this week and the tracks and you can go in and, like, there's a pro plan, which is cheap. It's like $10 a month, $15 a month, to where, like, your worship leader can set up the tracks like 3 months out. And then you just go in and like 20 people on your team can have it. And so whatever the set list is, it's already there on your phone, on your iPad. You just sync it and it shows the list, and then you got 3 months to practice to get ready.
So we don't do this, right? But that would be phenomenal.
No.
Yeah, because you're saying that I could have, as a guitar player, for like 4 weeks from now, I could have the tracks already in my phone, and I could turn them on and practice to them.
Yeah, and you have 4 weeks to nail it.
That would be amazing.
We do a little bit, like, people just use my login. That way. But there's another way that's a little easier, to where, like,
it's kind of like Planning Center. You see the set list, see all the charts, but then you could go into Loop Community, pull it up on your phone, and just play the track.
It's all right there, yeah. And that,
well, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I mean, I don't know that I would practice for 4 weeks, but I would practice for 4 days before. But I'm going to learn it in 4 days. But if I knew it was hard, then I would practice for 4 weeks.
And there's, another thing I don't think we talked about was, like, say you're doing Gratitude by Brandon Lake. Well, at the end of the song, there's like 3 or 4 minutes of spontaneous that he does in the track, and those tracks are on there. So you can take those out and just do the song you can do the song however you want. You can move the verse to the end of the song if you want. That's what's awesome about it. But then if you subscribe to that pro plan, then whatever you change and you save it stays that way. So that's your version of Gratitude. And then you send it to your team members, and it's always the same.
Yeah, I've noticed, like, so awesome. Some of those songs have like a 4-minute bridge or something, and I know we've deleted that.
Yeah,
so you just go in and say, nope, we're not doing that part. And
with the old thing, you would have to do that every time you did that song. You have to go in and delete those parts every time, because you couldn't save them. But now, like, it's got so advanced now to where I can whatever your worship director or leader, whoever sets up the tracks, does those, then you hit sync and it syncs to all your band members' phones or iPads or Macs, and then it's right there for you. You don't have to do anything. Just open it up and go to your set list.
That's wild.
It's amazing what they've done.
So there's no excuse to stink.
No.
I mean, the tools that we have now, I mean, talking about 25 years ago.
Yeah. When I was playing, it's like, you'd have to listen to the song on your CD player and hit pause 1,000 times to figure out the
Right.
part, you know, start and stop, start, stop.
If
start,
you don't
stop.
know your guitar part, you can just go on YouTube and type in
Yeah.
lead part for, whatever song, enter, and there's like 10 different videos of guys like, here's the delay setting. It's insane what we have. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
if I could have had that back in the day,
yeah, we didn't have, we're like so
it's all
old.
by ear.
When I started playing guitar, there was no YouTube. So how did we even do it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why these young kids like your son, they're like just killing it. They're like YouTube. They don't need anything. They just go in there and figure it out. Like come out like I did it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's
I mean, still today, I've been playing for all these years, and I'll get on YouTube and look at a part, and then I'll have to start and pause it 100 times on YouTube to get it. But yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I use YouTube for especially like I'll figure out the song like Lion and the Lamb. I'll figure out that lick by ear, but then I'll be like, wait a minute, that finger seems weird. And I'll watch and be like, oh, there are different ways to play it. Different fret positions, and sometimes I just look around to find which one's easy. If it's in the minor pentatonic box, then I'm gonna love it. So that was a pretty big tip. Let's do any last minute like big tips for I'm gonna implement this. I'm ready to do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be frustrating at first because you might be the only one that gets it, and your band might fight you, and not everybody. Like I have people that say I don't want to play and refuse to be in my band, but they came around and got it. It just stick with it, keep going. It's worth it.
So you had people say literally, I'm not playing with you, Mike. I'm not quit the band. I'm not putting those things in my ear. I'm not going to listen to that.
The old school, like they didn't even like having like chords in front of them. Like they're like, I play by ear only. I'm like, no, look at the chord right in front of you, play it because you're all over the place. It just makes you better. But definitely, because I was wary about it too at first. But I just wanted something better. I wanted to sound better. That's all it does. It just enhances. It doesn't replace, it enhances.
But you came from you're talking about a church that was very flowy.
Yeah.
Very flowy.
Like more gospel.
More gospel and just all over the place.
Like we didn't have, there was no structure.
Right.
Really. Like we had our 3 songs or whatever, and then if something took off, it took off. And then here where we're at now, when I came here, I was like, everything was to the minute structured, which it took me a while to get. I didn't like that because I came from free flowing to structure.
It's way different.
But the Bible talks about being in order. Like, and so I always thought, like, when I came here, I was like, oh, the Spirit ain't going to flow here because we're by the minute. Pastor preaches for 22 minutes, and then he's done, and this song is 5 minutes and 30 seconds. But with the pastor's help a lot with that. He wants more expressive worship. So he's like, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, those time limits on those planning center things seem very weird. But it's definitely, there's definitely still room. But it's
tons of room.
But coming from where you went to tracks, but you were able to implement tracks. Now I'm just putting all this together in my mind. You were able to, in this church, this like flowy, like all this. You were able to implement tracks and actually
still
use
flow.
them.
Yeah,
and still flow.
Like we wouldn't do like, Lion and the Lamb. And then, we could, and then go right to the next song. But if churches, people are worshiping, like you don't want to stop that. So we just noodle around for a little while, and then we can go to the next track. So it's like there's so many, and you don't always have to have the track to go back into the song. Just go back into it, because once you start doing these tracks, your band's going to be tight, and you won't. It's crazy because once you start doing this, like now, like even on the every song I listen to on the radio, I hear the click. Like you just hear it, like you're tapping your foot to it.
You hear the structure.
You hear and so, that's what.
Yeah, and Christian music and worship music, it's all very structured.
It's all the same.
It's very grid oriented. I mean, you're gonna have a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and some of the artists have went weird on that, but it's typically gonna be that.
That's what's amazing about this app is you can do anything. You can, like I said, you can move. If you love that bridge and want to do it 6 more times, move it to you can start with the bridge if you wanted to. Before you couldn't do that. It took a lot to get to flow that way. Because it's cool to start. You could start with like a down bridge of the song, with the pad, and then and you don't even have to click anything. You can set this app to where soon as and you can set it for, I'm going to sing this bridge for 1 minute and 20 seconds. and then we're going to go into the full song. So you can set that pad and click to 1:20, and it automatically goes right into the song. So
Right
it's
into
like
the click,
super
yeah.
flow. Like there's no odd moments, you know.
Yeah, like when I'm standing there on stage, there's a pad going on, and we're waiting for the pastor to talk. I mean, it's still, we're noodling around, and then whenever it's like time to go, I just hear the 1, 2,
Yeah.
3. You know, it tells you like we're going, and that's all controlled, very controlled.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can wait or you can go.
And if anybody's got questions like how reliable is it? Like back in the day, what's crazy is I've seen like forums, like so many forums of people like, oh, I hit play today and nothing happened. And it was the first song of the service. Is like, so we just had to like, we freaked out and we just had to play without the track. And I've used Loop Community for like 7 years now. And anytime it messed up was because I hit something wrong. Like I hit the mute, but I might have, we were at the end of practice, someone wanted to hear their part. So I soloed their part, you know, and then I forgot to unsolo it. So when I hit play, that's all that came out was that part. Everything was my fault. But this, like 2 weeks ago, I hit play and nothing happened. And so all I did was, most time if it messes up, which they've fixed so much stuff now, it's super reliable, is you just shut the app off and turn it back on, and then everything's fine. Because sometimes, you know, I mean, apps, anything man-made could mess up.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
that's-
like,
yeah, that nothing happened.
Yeah,
right?
it was bad. All it is, like, because I'm the director, so I got a mic, I can talk to everybody. So I just told the worship heads, like, stall, say something for a second, like, give a testimony for a second. And I shut the app down. I mean, 20 seconds, it shut down, turned back on, everything was fine. But that was the only time in 7 years I've ever had any problems with it.
Yeah, and I don't think that, even though that was probably the biggest epic failure of the app at that moment. I mean, it was the start of the service. I was there. I was on stage, and we were just kind of waiting to go, and then all of a sudden, nothing happened. And then Derek just started talking because you told him, "Hey, start talking." And that's the other great thing about
give me a second,
the in-ears and the music director. You know, they get like, "Hey, you know, you need to talk now." And so without that, in the old days, it'd be like turning around, looking at each other. What are you doing? Talking, whispering.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody noticed anything. They just thought it was a moment of pause, and then Derek started doing his thing. So that's another. Yeah, that is another thing that would go right in with the big 3 tips at the end.
Yeah,
You've got the music director, you've got the reliable, and you can talk to each other. At least the band director can talk to everybody. Hey, the app's not working. We're going to do this song without a click. You know, do that song while the app starts up or something.
Yep.
So you could do all that. All right. Well, remember, I want to thank Mike for coming in for the podcast. Also, remember, we are going to be putting together a course today. We're going to be recording all this today in the studio. We're going to have it out. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can click on the description in this video, or you can just go to worshiptheking.com. You can look for the Loop Community Tracks program. It'll go also into the Propel Worship Mentorship right away. I want everybody in the Propel Mentorship to have this, so it's going to go right in there. If you want to learn more about that, just go to propelworship.com, where we're doing a full year mentorship for certification through Church Answers. You can actually become a certified worship leader, which is really important. You're going to learn everything from how to lead worship, how to build a band, how to make schedules. You're going to learn, you might even see Michael in there on the Bolster Social app, giving you his input on running tracks and being a music director at a church, a medium to small church. It's a great certification. It can open up doors for you. So thank you, Mike, for coming in, and I'm excited to get this going on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.